Today's guest is someone who brings a grounded, real world perspective to the way our family dynamics shape who we become. Coach Bill Ritchie is a motivational mindset coach who helps adults break free from patterns shaped by emotionally challenging family environments. His work focuses on building emotional resilience, strengthening emotional regulation, and helping people develop a healthier, more empowered mindset rooted in clarity and self trust. Bill's approach highlights how many of the behaviors we struggle with, like perfectionism, people pleasing, and feeling emotionally stuck, often have deeper roots in the environments we grew up in. And most importantly, that these patterns are not permanent. We're talking about how generational trauma shows up in everyday life, why so many high functioning adults still feel emotionally reactive, and what it actually takes to start moving forward in a way that feels more grounded and aligned. Bill, welcome to Wellish. I'm so happy
Well,
to
thank
have
you,
you here.
Sarah. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. I want to start by thinking more about like what just honestly jumping right into the family dynamics. Like what made you realize that family dynamics shape us more than we think or more than we realize?
It's all my own journey, I would say. I grew up in a home where I had abuse, physical and emotional abuse from my stepmother, and a father that never truly heard me. So that's where it all stems from for me. So we'll go way back to when I was about 2 years old. My original parents got divorced, so I never remember my mom and my father together. Um, Back in those days is a little different. It's a long story, but my dad had basically custody of me, and I saw my mom every third weekend. It was kind of BS how that all worked out, but so then along comes my dad's new wife when I was about 6 years old, and it was shortly thereafter that the abuse started to happen, right? So, yeah, as when somebody who's gone through that kind of childhood trauma, it just obviously really affects you. It affects you if you don't deal with it going into your teens, into your young adult life, and then it could affect you the rest of your life. And it truly does. So that's basically where I came from. And then
Yeah.
a few years ago when I got into coaching, I said, "Hey, I'm going to just be a life coach and help everybody," right? And it didn't start off very good because I wasn't really going down a path where I could really speak like my own truth, you know? So that's when I said, no, I'm going to get into, I was kind of afraid of it, even though I healed from it. So then I'm like, no, I want to help other people that have gone through this and are currently going through this because I know there's a lot of people out there.
What was the moment that made you realize like, oh, like what I'm dealing with, this didn't start with me.
Yeah, that was probably as early as into my 20s where I never really dealt with it.
Okay.
Just kind of suppressed it, right? We put things on the back burner that are hard. Um, so I started to realize it more in my 30s, I guess, because it affected everything. It affected my job or jobs, where I could never figure out what I wanted to do, was never happy. It definitely affected my relationships, including, intimate relationships, because you're coming from that wounded child place, right? So a lot of your reactions, everything you deal with on a daily basis, even though you don't think and realize that's happening, it just affects everything.
So I'm curious, like, kind of getting more into what generational trauma really means. I'm curious what that looks like in real life terms because I
Mhm.
think we hear generational trauma a lot as more of a buzzword. That it's just something more that you think like, oh, because this person did this, and now I'm the way that I am, and there's nothing that I can really do to
Mhm.
change it. This is my makeup. I've been trained this way. So I'm just curious, more so thinking about how it shows up, and what it looks like in the everyday life perspective. That it doesn't have to be these like overarching like huge things that are happening.
Yeah. So for me, just very briefly, generational trauma tends to come from the generation before you and maybe before that, right? So without diving too deep into that and focusing on your question here, it just leads us to, you mentioned in the intro, like people pleasing, for me, it really, really affected my confidence. I had to work for years on my own confidence because you're just, beaten down, right? To the point where you just feel small. You avoid you avoid conflict. There's multiple things there. So on the daily basis, it's just like you just feel like you're still constantly dealing with all the stresses from it.
So it came more from the abuse, it sounds like, from you. Were there like patterns that you think that you picked up on subconsciously from that compared to just like the conscious what you obviously experienced the abuse, so you have a reaction to that, but was there something more subliminal that came through for you?
I think for me, I thought I was okay. Like I mentioned, going through my 20s and into my 30s, I thought I'd like just I'm good now, whatever. But then I started to get flashbacks, started to get dreams, and then even while I was awake, I would get some flashbacks. So I'm like, no, something is not right here. So that's when I guess it wasn't a big eureka moment because I knew I'd always been dealing with this. But that's when I finally went and I started talking with a therapist and then got a coach and um, finally started to heal myself, right?
What do you think was the biggest impact that you noticed about like how you showed up in the world?
I think it was just how I always thought I was a glass half full kind of person, but I'd really turned into a negative person. So glass half empty, however you want to put it. Where I was just like I wasn't mean or arrogant or like a real jerk or whatever, but I think I self-sabotaged a lot of my own relationships, right?
Mm.
Because put the blame on the other person or like maybe just because I never truly found out why I was never really happy, right? Like I said, not like a real violent or mean person or anything like that, but essentially maybe I was in certain situations, right? Not even realizing that that's all the stuff from my past where it was stemming from. So I was like, no, I don't want to live like this. I don't want to treat others like that if I was, I'm sure I was in some situations. Um, so yeah, it's just like this is not Bill.
Yeah. What are kind of taking it back to childhood? What are some subtle ways that generational trauma shows up there? Because obviously, again, like the abuse is so blatant. Are there ways that it shows up that are more subtle?
I think in childhood, for me, it just became the norm, right? And I said physical, yes, there was physical, but I think the emotional, psychological was a lot worse. Um, so as a child, that just became the norm for me. And then in adulthood, I think I would react sometimes to certain situations where it's just like, okay, I'm not reacting as a 31-year-old here. I'm reacting as a 12, 13-year-old who's maybe rebelling now, right? Because of that. So it's just interesting in a few situations where I didn't realize that till a little bit later. And it's just like, yeah, I'm speaking from my 12-year-old self instead of my 30 something or 40 something self, right?
I think that's a really good way to think about it too. That it is like it's like you get stuck in these. You don't complete that nervous system cycle, that survival
Yeah.
cycle, and so then you get trapped in that old mentality and are responding because you just don't think that your body physically doesn't think you're
Yeah.
safe, and it's just that's such a bizarre piece
Yeah.
of it that I think a lot of us aren't aware of. And I think something that you said that you were talking about, it's such a normal part
Correct.
of your
Yep.
life that you can't be aware and identify what's wrong when you just think that's how things are supposed to
Hmm.
be. And I think that, that's huge in childhood because this is your upbringing. This is all you know. This is all you've been exposed to. And I
Yeah.
think obviously that same thing can be true when we become adults. Awareness is so huge. And
Yeah.
if you think that the way that things are just the way things are, it makes it really hard to make a shift or to not internalize everything that happens
Yeah.
to you.
Exactly.
And so then you said that you self abandon, and right? Is that
Yeah.
what you said? That you like just like would self sabotage and do all
Yeah.
of that? Was that like where the perfectionism and people pleasing for you come in, that you turn around and coach that?
Yeah, I think so. And I think when my children were young, we're a hockey family, so I coached my both my daughter and my son in hockey. And I just thought, okay, I'm teaching hockey, I'm teaching skills, I'm teaching fun, motivation. Um, but for me, it was so much more than that, right? Because of my hurt and my crap from childhood. Because actually, when I played hockey growing up, and that's the only time I felt free, right? I was in that rink for an hour or so, and it's just like nobody can touch me, nobody can hurt me, right? So I brought that passion into coaching my kids, and just trying to be so much more positive for my kids, whether it was hockey or just on the daily basis with my children, right? Because as far as generational trauma, I could have repeated those behaviors, and a lot do, right? Just in how they raise their own children, right? So I
Yeah.
refuse. I am not going to hurt, emotionally or physically hurt my kids. Yes, kids can be challenging at times. You have to have discipline, obviously, right? Can't let them run amok. But yeah, so that's one thing I'm breaking the cycle here.
Why do you think so many like high achieving, put together, if you will, not that everybody has it all together, but just for the sake of
Yeah,
example, why do you think so many people that are like that still feel emotionally reactive inside?
because they've never truly healed. Um, like myself, and I keep using myself as an example because I went through it where for years I didn't heal. And to sit here and tell you I'm 100% perfect, it would be a bold-faced lie too, right? I'm still learning. I still have triggers. But I think people, because it was, sorry if I'm repeating myself, but because it feels like it was such a normal thing, even though it was abuse or trauma or whatever you've dealt with, um, maybe you just have never dealt with that, right? Or don't think, oh well, what's the point now? I'm 40. Well, what's the point? You know? Um, so yeah, I think it just comes back to not healing it, which is so important.
Yeah. What do you think the connection is between emotional regulation and family dynamics?
I think it can be huge because if we don't regulate ourselves and heal, as previously mentioned, like it's going to affect everything. It's going to affect how you show up for your family. It's going to react how you like I still have to deal with my father, and that's still a touchy situation for me. Um, although he was the one that did not abuse me in a way, like he never helped me either. You know, so it's
Right. And a
yeah,
complex.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's how you show up in those situations too can be very, very challenging, right?
Absolutely. I think what's interesting too, like with the generational trauma or the generational dynamic, is just like that you learn how to emotionally regulate from those people. And when you have people showing you how they respond to their emotions and their like react things that they react to and their
Mhm.
triggers in a way that is not emotionally regulated, it continues on. And like that, and it kind of going back again, I mean, I know we're repeating ourselves,
Yeah,
but that is what generational trauma is that you think that this is normal, that this is your learned behavior,
yeah,
and it's hard to break that pattern when it's something that's all you've ever known for so long, and that you as a person have to not only become aware of it but then do the hard work to rewrite those patterns. But when these patterns are things that you've been doing for, I
yeah,
mean, since you were born,
yeah.
that's intense.
Exactly. And a big thing also is boundaries and how to set those boundaries without guilt, right? Because in speaking with generational trauma and let's say our parents that we have difficulties with, or even a relationship, if you don't set those boundaries, they're going to continue to walk all over you because you're essentially allowing that to happen, right? So that was a big thing for me personally with my father was just like, no, I'm not going to let you talk to me like that. this is where I am now. It's like drawing that line in the sand, right? Okay, I'm going to get my power back, and because the boundaries are essentially are not for the other person, they're for yourself.
I'm thinking about you in your 20s and 30s, kind of transitioning that you were, you were living this way, you were emotionally reactive, and then you start to kind of realize that that's not the way that you want to live. And I'm curious, how do we know the difference between our personality and our conditioning? Because, like you said, like you pictured yourself as a glass half empty or a full
Yeah.
person, but really were a glass half empty. And so I'm just curious, like, what that difference is.
I think it just comes to if we can get to a realization of where we are. Sometimes we can't get there on our own. Sometimes we need the help of a coach, of a therapist, of a true friend, just to, you know, I started with a good friend of mine since grade seven. And I just said, "Am I like a jerk?" Like, she's like, "No, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?" And she knew my story, right? We confided in each other. She had a lot of stuff too. Um, so yeah, I think it's just if you can get to that moment, because I think internally we know who we are, whether we're conditioned or not. But it's like almost like you hear of cults and brainwashing and stuff like that. It really is a form of the psychological emotionalism. So it's a form of brainwashing, right? And our brains believe what we tell them, whether we say that, subconsciously or we think that. But truly, there's always something in me that's like, no, no, I know who I am. Like I'm a better person than this. This wasn't my fault, you know? Um, and that's kind of what led me to, well, not kind of, that is what led me to coaching because for years I was in jobs I didn't like. I'm like, I mean, some jobs were okay, but it was just like, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing, right? So, kind of a similar comparison where we have that internal person, thought, whatever it is inside of us, our soul, that just knows this is not me. And if you don't know that, and if you're struggling, I would encourage you to reach out, whether that's with me, somebody else, whoever. Just get the help and get the help for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like the integration part of it that like you do have to I think our culture a lot of the time teaches us that like we've got to figure it out by ourselves and we have to be independent and that like it won't you've got to have your own back and all these things, but really so much of it is being able to integrate and being able to speak with other people and bounce ideas off of other people and kind of realize things that you might not have realized before, going back to the idea that you don't know what you don't
Yeah.
know. And so being able to talk to people about those things helps kind of bring that realization
And
to the
if I
forefront.
can jump in just on one more point, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Me being a male and a Gen Xer, our generation of men, we were growing up to just like suck it up, right? Feelings, what are those?
Hmm.
I know a lot has changed now, but there's still a lot in my generation that, oh no, I just I just suck it up, right? I just go to work, provide for my family, and then don't talk. So there's a lot more, obviously, awareness now of mental health.
It's definitely so true. And a lot of the time, because that stigma's put on them, they're the ones that need
Exactly, we're the
it.
ones that need it the most. But you
Yeah.
got, no gun to anybody's head either. You got to be ready and willing to do that. But it's not to do it for me, it's to
100%.
do it for yourself, right? Because life is short, so why not be happy?
Yeah. Why do you think we can't mindset our way out of those old patterns? Like, because the logic I feel like only goes so far.
Mhm. Well, I don't know about you, but I've always found it easier to help others than it is to help myself. And I think a vast portion of the population may be like that as well. Um, there are so many, it's just so much easier to talk about somebody else's problems or, walk them through or listen to them. And it's just like we don't help ourselves that way, or we self criticize a lot too, right?
Totally. Yeah. What do you think? Like, I'm curious what you do with your clients. Like, what actually helps someone regulate their emotions when they're triggered?
It's different for everyone, right? Some people, I'm not heavy into personally. I'm not trying to say that I am. I'm not heavy into meditation, but for some people, it's finding some self care when you're in that moment. One thing that is good is like just to slow yourself down, even if it's just some deep breathing. If you're in that moment, for some, journaling is a great way to get their thoughts and feelings out. um, what I've been, for me, I find I can be fine throughout the day. Everything's going on throughout the day. And then it's like I'm about to go to bed and it's like the hamster wheel starts going in the brain. It's like, how do I shut the brain off, man? Like, what the hell? I'm
Yeah.
so tired, but I can't sleep. So
Mm, yes.
what I've been doing and suggesting to some of my clients lately, maybe it doesn't have to be a full out journal, right? I personally am not huge on journaling, but I've been doing what I'm calling like a brain dump, where you just get I'm old school, so you get like a notepad, or you can just put on your phone, whatever, even though you shouldn't be on your phone right before you go to bed either. Um, just a brain dump. And maybe that's nothing too serious. Maybe it's just like, oh, I had a shit day, or um, I have to do A, B, and C tomorrow. Okay. So, or it could be like a full page, it could be like a couple of words, and that at least releases that from your brain so that hopefully you can relax and focus. And I've been working on it because nothing is perfect. I've always struggled with sleep personally, and I know a lot of people that do. So just some suggestions there.
I'm thinking of you talking about the as men, and I think that that's so real. Like that, men have a little bit of a harder time with this, and so I'm wondering what emotional resilience means beyond just like being strong.
Yeah. So I think if I could go back to like my own confidence, it's like I lost it. Like I lost my confidence, right? And our inner strength can be so much more powerful than our outer strength. A lot of guys, including myself, feel like, okay, yeah, we're going to go work out, we're going to go play sports, we're going to get that physical testosterone, whatever, out of our bodies, right? We feel better after that, generally speaking. But if we're not doing the internal work as well, and holding a lot of stuff internally, then I think I think it's just as important to be, maybe more important to be more internally powerful. Because for me, a while ago, I'm not sure where we cut off there, but I was saying that I lost my confidence. It took a long time for me to get my confidence back, right? Certain things like the gym can help you with that too, right? Your self care, but self care has to be, I think, has to accompany everything, whether that's physical, mental. Um, yeah. So, but before I wasn't doing that. I was just doing the physical stuff too. So I think a lot of guys just think, okay, well, I'll be fine if I go do the physical side of things, but they don't realize they have to work on themselves internally.
It's interesting because it almost makes me wonder, and I have no like science to back this up or whatever, but like I just think you mentioning that makes me think that like men might be more likely to focus on the outer strength than the inner strength, as you just said.
Yeah.
And women might be more likely to focus on the inner strength than the outer strength. That like I can think of
Yeah.
myself when I like am navigating my life, all I'm doing constantly is trying to heal and understand what's happening inside of me and feel my
Yeah.
feelings and but then I notice that like if I'm not taking care of myself physically, that like that's something that I do neglect more than my internal. That like I'm
Yeah.
not worried about what I'm eating, or I'm not going to the gym as much as I should. And every time I start to do that, my mental health starts to decline. And so it's just interesting. You need that balance, and it's interesting that like men seem to follow the opposite of women.
Yeah. It's really interesting. If we combine the both of them, then we'd all be perfect, right?
Yeah, exactly. God.
So
So
maybe
if
find
some
a partner that will do that with you.
Hey, yeah, wait, actually, that's a great point.
Yeah. Easier said
if
than done.
some, amen. If someone felt stuck in a pattern that they've had for years, where do you start to recommend they begin?
Yeah, so through in my coaching sessions, we would just start with um, really what's coming up for them in that moment. And it's interesting, some of my sessions, because they might think, oh, hey, I'm having a problem with my work, right? So they start talking about that. And it's just so interesting, even within one session, how a conversation where they thought they were coming in with the specific problem turns into something, does a total 180 and goes right into something else. So for me and for anybody I'm helping, it would just be, um, let's just talk, see where you're at.
Definitely. Well, it makes sense to just notice first, like that you have to be able to
Mhm.
catch the feeling that you're having, or like the pattern that you're experiencing first, because obviously that's where you pattern disrupt essentially. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and the person that is going through that may not even know. They might just think, "Oh, I feel depressed," or "I'm not really myself," right? So that moment, they might not be at that moment yet of knowing why they're struggling or why they're stuck, you know?
Yeah. Do you think that people start to identify with those things? I just
But
think
definitely
like
depends on the individual.
yeah, definitely. I could picture a lot of people like having like before they come and talk to you and work with you that like they just think like, well, this is just how I am. I'm just a people pleaser. I'm just a perfectionist.
Hmm.
I'm just whatever it is that they do. And then when they have
Hmm.
that conversation, that they don't necessarily have to identify as that person anymore. And I liked what you had said earlier in the conversation that we know deep down who we are, and anytime you're people pleasing or
Yeah,
any of those things, like maybe you think that you are that way, but if you really like take a step back and think about it, you're like, I know
yeah,
that like I'm doing this to maybe protect myself or to get through life.
yeah, yeah. And once again, comes back to the constant conditioning, right? How we've been conditioned, how we just think that's the normal thing for us, but it really isn't. So,
Hmm. What
yeah.
happens when someone starts questioning those roles that they've been playing? That like they realize that like, oh, this is maybe more than what I thought.
Yeah, well, there's just once again depends on the person, but it's those um, realizations, and sometimes a lot of emotion comes out with that too, right?
Hmm.
And then in those moments, always depends on the person, but they may want to dive in deeper, and then we go a little deeper,
Totally.
or they may just want to stay with that. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
How do you? I'm wondering like how you build self trust if you grew up second guessing yourself, because obviously like a lot of this stuff does, like you can realize all you want, but even though you're aware of it, you could still be second guessing yourself and not trusting that what you
Yeah,
thought is the correct thought, and that we know that that's just a huge rabbit hole. So like
yeah.
especially when you've grown up in this situation that you are always second guessing yourself, how do you start to build self trust?
I think it's just bringing it back to um, just really convincing myself that um, yeah, my parents wasn't the best example even for relationships. And I exclude my mom from this. My mom is absolutely amazing. She's awesome. I have a fantastic relationship with her. But going back to my dad and stepfather, it's just like that was not a good role model for me for relationships too. It's like even somebody that may have cheated on the other, then that kid may feel like, oh, that's normal, right? And these are learned behaviors. They're not right. But how the hell do you know that if that's been kind of your role models growing up, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, it just affects so much, and just talking about that just brings up stuff right now.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy.
Yeah. I think that's interesting too that you say like, oh, like using cheating as the example, and then like maybe that someone follows that same pattern because they think that that's normal,
Mhm.
or that people accept that behavior from other people because they think, well, that's just
Yeah,
the way things are. But being able
yeah,
to expose yourself to it enough, or notice it enough, or work with it enough? Do you think that's really what ultimately builds the self trust?
Yeah, I think so because you're gonna like if you don't build up and deal with it, like you're gonna have obviously your own trust issues, right? And that's huge when you're talking about relationships and stuff like that. You may think that person is gonna cheat on you because you come from that from your influence or whatever.
Yeah. What's a mindset shift that you think can immediately help someone feel less stuck?
I would think for there's a few things, but one thing is just kind of writing down or talking through what you really want, right? You may think you're okay in your career, but maybe that isn't really what you should be doing. Um, also, um, it's just to talk. I find like talking to myself. Um, it's easier to do that now because we have Bluetooth in the car, right? We can pretend we're on the phone, but we're talking to ourselves.
It's true.
Where I want to go with this is back in my day, it was like, oh, hey, that guy is really talking to himself. He's losing it. But what I mean, sorry, is like we can put ourselves down easily, right?
Yeah.
But if we start, I'll give you an okay. I'm not explaining this very good. I'll give you an example. I just started refereeing as a part-time thing, hockey, because I played hockey, coached my kids. So I'm just an opportunity to get back into the game a little bit. Never thought I would be a referee. So the first couple of games I was refereeing, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. What am I doing? Like I know the game, but I don't know it from that angle. So on the ice, I just not a lot, but I just started saying, "You got this. You know what you're doing. Let's go. You got this. Let's go." Right? Like just little pep talk to myself. So that can be used, and I've suggested that to people to use that just in your daily life, right? When you're on your own, you're not going to be at work, start talking out loud or something, but you need
Yeah.
to go to the
Sometimes I
bathroom to
do. I'm not
say,
gonna lie.
yeah. Just some positive encouragement for you, like for yourself, right? Like I got this. I'm going to be okay. No, I am good at what I'm doing right now. It's okay.
Yeah,
And that's
completely.
not an easy thing to do. That took me a while to learn and to figure out for myself. So
I like the out loud thing too, because I think that like that's kind of where we get overthinking. Is that like you're
yeah,
spiraling in your head because you think like, I feel this way, so I'm spiraling about this thing, but I'm gonna try to talk myself out of it because I know I shouldn't feel that way, and here's all my tools, and I'm
yeah,
gonna apply all the things because I'm self improvement, and I
yeah,
know how to do it, and
yeah,
but like when you actually talk out loud, you're like I have been totally spiraling in my head in my house before, and I'm at home, so
yeah,
I'm not gonna look like a crazy person out
yeah,
in real life. And it isn't
yeah,
until I out loud am like,
yeah,
"Hi, here, it's me. How's it going? Like, what's going on in there? Like, why are you
yeah,
freaking out? Like, okay, we're good. Everything's fine. I'm safe right now. I feel okay." And like those are the moments that like I think actually bring us out of that,
yeah,
that anxiety
yeah.
that
That's
a lot of
awesome that
us.
you can do that now.
And I think that like you talking about, being an overthinker, I'm just like wondering where do you think we start to confuse anxiety with responsibility? Since a lot of the time, like that is what we're saying in our heads.
That's a good question. Um, I think that anxiety is it's real, but it can be so much up within our own heads, you know. It's so it's really not part of reality. And I'm not trying to talk like an expert on here, but for me and for others that I've dealt with, like my daughter deals with a lot of anxiety. She's in university. She's always dealt with, like a lot of anxiety. And once we talk through things and she does some breathing and she like calms herself down, because like even let's say a job interview, you get so stressed and so worried about it, and then you go through the interview and you're like, oh, that wasn't that bad. What was I getting so upset about? Right? So I think our perception of what reality is can be so much different from what it actually is, if that makes any sense. Um, but anxiety can just overtake a person as well. So it's like just trying to find balance, whether that is talking the things out loud, talking to yourself down, whether that's breathing, whether that's just taking a moment or two to meditate, if that's what works for you. You know, in that moment, it can really, really be helpful just to calm you down.
I think something too that kind of plays a factor there is what you were talking about earlier about setting boundaries. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you don't set those boundaries, you're just going to get more anxious. It's like, and then you're going to have the guilt that you didn't set the boundary. So then that brings in more anxiety, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And when I, to go back quickly in our conversation,
yeah.
when I started to set boundary with my dad, I had all these thoughts in my, oh, he's never going to listen. Oh, that's not going to work. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. But, and even when I started, I did like a half a boundary. I'd be like half the sentence, and it's like, then I would just cave, right? Because like he would just, his eyes would glaze over or he wouldn't acknowledge my boundary. So then I had to get a little blunt and said, you're going to F and accept this, bud, and, or else I'm not going to talk to you. I think we just feel guilty because of that. Like what I was just saying about my dad, right? Oh, he's older now, so if I set a boundary, like he might not be around next week. Like I don't know, right? Like we just come back to that constant, like whether it's your trauma or your abuse, and it's just the confidence or lacking the confidence of setting that boundary because you think, well, it's not going to work anyway. So what's the point? But then you end up, that's just so much more hurtful for you if you don't.
I think you mentioned something that's kind of really important when it comes to the generational trauma is that even though you experienced it, you still love your family. And like, yeah, I know you've expressed that you have a struggled relationship. What word am I looking for? Like just a pained relationship, maybe with your dad more so, but that you can still. I don't know if I want to use the word honored, but like, like love your family and still heal from the generational trauma.
Yeah, for sure. And there may be different levels of that in different points because like my relationship with my dad is not perfect by any means. Certain points as well where I refuse to have any contact with my father. And that was part of my healing journey too, because I wasn't prepared or really ready yet to confidently set that boundary. And like I said, I started to, and he wasn't listening anyway. So sometimes the only answer is no contact,
Yeah,
right? And that is part of regaining your power and part of your healing.
yeah, totally. I'm wondering if someone could walk away from this episode remembering just one thing, what would it be?
I would say that you deserve happiness and you deserve to heal. Sorry, that's two things.
No, that's good. So, to wrap up, I like to play a game with my guests. I call it Kinda Toxic, Kinda Well. Essentially, what it does is it highlights the humanity of all of my guests. So, because a lot of you guys are very healed, you give very good answers, or sometimes even say, I don't experience that at all, or you do give a good, something good that are still working through. So, whatever you feel called to answer, I've got 8 rapid fire questions for you. Okay, perfect.
All right, cool.
Who are you jealous of right now?
Ooh. Um, I'm gonna say nobody because jealousy is not a cool thing. Like I can be envious of people, but I'm not jealous of anybody because I want those people to be happy too.
I love that. What's a moment recently where you caught yourself either ignoring your own needs or that you chose yourself instead?
Um, I would say ignoring my own needs a couple of times a few weeks ago to go to the gym because I was just feeling tired and I was over the holidays I put my back out. So I was kind of nervous to go back and work out, but that's what I needed to do. So I kicked my own butt for not doing that.
That's a good one. What do you find yourself overthinking about these days?
Um, just if I'm going through my processes with my clients efficiently enough, because because of some of my past, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, right? I know nothing is perfect, but how can I better serve my clients? I think I'm doing okay, but I always want to improve. So,
Mm-hmm. What is a should, like an expectation that you've put on yourself that you've let go of, or one that you know you still need to?
um, I will say, I'll just go with being kinder to myself all of the time because there are still moments I am not kind to myself, and hopefully that just proves that none of us are perfect. But yeah, to be constantly kind to myself.
Love that. What's something that makes you quick to get annoyed or angry?
Quick to get annoyed or angry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, People not listening to me. Like I love her dearly, but I'll just point out my wife because sometimes she doesn't let me finish a sentence,
I relate to that.
and then she'll be like, yeah, and then she'll be like, well, what were you? Well, you weren't letting me finish a sentence, so
Yeah.
like I don't need to talk for an hour, but can I just? And because that's what I do as a profession, like I listen, it's really tough when somebody else doesn't listen to you, right?
Definitely. That makes sense. What's a toxic thought you still catch yourself believing?
Um, Occasionally, not very often, but going back when triggered to the glass half empty guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe something negative shoots out of my mouth. It's like, well, I do catch myself, but that I think we're all a work in progress for everything, right?
Yeah, 100%. And like we were talking about that noticing. That's cool. What's a
Yeah,
wellness rule or trend you don't buy into?
that I don't buy into.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't want to say I don't buy into it because I don't want to offend anybody, but um, for me, I've tried meditation and meditation just doesn't work for me. And that's okay, right? And
Mm-hmm.
for those that it works for, that's amazing. But I guess I am envious of not being able to meditate.
If you could leave my
It's all
Wellish
good.
friends with one piece of advice on becoming more well than toxic, what would it be?
I would say just reach out, like reach out to somebody. Um, I don't want to self promote, but you can reach out to me. You can reach out to you. You can reach out to somebody they know that just will, because like yeah, just reach out and do it for yourself because
Yeah.
you deserve it.
Where can people find you if they want to work with you?
Yeah, cool. So I got all my socials, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Yes, the older guys on the TikTok. Um, and I just revamped my website. So it's coachbill4u.com. That's the number for the letter U. I think you'll have it on your
Mm-hmm.
stuff there. But and one thing I'm excited about too is I just recently started my own community on School. I don't know if you're aware of the platform school.com, but
Mm-hmm.
it's people want to follow me there. It's totally free to sign up. And I'm going to be getting more into maybe a monthly or a weekly coffee talk where I just get on there and everybody just basically shoots the shit and then maybe have some topics, right? But just trying to build a community that way. So if you want to check me out there, and also I have an online course. It's called Breaking Free, and that is available on that platform as well.
Cool. And I will link everything down below so everything will be in the description so you can access it. Thank
Awesome.
you
Appreciate
so
that.
much, Bill. I really appreciate you being here and all of your insight. Everything that you experienced, it obviously has provided my listeners with things that is going to be really helpful. So I appreciate you for talking to us today.
Awesome. Sorry. I appreciate the opportunity and it was really nice to meet you and get to know you. I appreciate it.